Something Koon.
Mr. Speaker, it is timely that the NLB Act is being amended. The proliferation of digital media means that more and more content is being generated by a more diverse range of sources. Anyone can create a blog, write a post, or self-publish an e-book online. This has several implications for NLB's archival functions. First, focusing on traditional sources is not enough. Second, taking an annual snapshot might not be enough, given the speed at which content is created and then replaced. Therefore, the move to expand the definition of library materials to include electronic materials and any online material made available on a Singapore website is an important one. This updates the intent of the Act fit to our modern circumstances. Similarly, the move from a scheme based on voluntary deposit of content to one where NLB has the right to make copies of library materials is a sensible reflection of the current media environment. However, how does NLB define the scope of online material which may be web harvested? Will it be clear to the content creators whether each particular piece of content would qualify to be web harvested? Do they have the right to reject web harvesting? And if web harvesting applies only to Singaporean websites, would this create an incentive to post content on overseas sites with the deliberate intent to avoid archiving? The ephemeral nature of the internet means that old content may disappear forever. This archive may be the only place that future researchers will be able to access such content. Is an annual archiving exercise sufficient? Websites are updated daily, sometimes even more than once a day. How much could be lost between each archiving exercise? But unless NLB is Google, it would be impossible to archive the entire internet constantly. So a line needs to be drawn. The question is whether annual is the right line. Conversely, having collected such a comprehensive dialogue of materials, how will NLB use and make accessible the electronic publications and archive websites so that more people can benefit from valuable content about our country? We have to be conscious of the need to balance the public interest with that of copyright holders and ensure that access to material is controlled. The Copyright Act is being amended to enable the content to be archived without violating copyright. It is of course critical to protect the rights of content creators, but at the same time, it is in the national interest to allow access to the treasure trove of archived documents. The current proposal is to restrict access to 2 terminals at NLB. This is similar to the offering in other countries, such as the UK, where there is 1 user per legal deposit library, and New Zealand, which allows only 3 users at a time. But does this achieve the right balance between the need for access and the protection of copyright? How did MCI determine the number and location of access terminals? For example, should researchers at universities be allowed to access the materials with some safeguards? And also, how would users who are unable to travel physically to the NLB site access the data? Should some level of online access be allowed, but carefully tracked to avoid abuse? In fact, one may argue that the speed at which content is created means that the value of all news decays faster online than it does in the print wall. In that case, perhaps the balance of the Act should be settled in the favor of the user rather than the copyright holders. After all, it would take great determination to wait a year to queue up at 2 terminals to read content. The other facet of the internet is the diversity of views, which can be published online without any filters or approvals. Compared to the old days of publishing, there is likely to be a lot more controversial content of low quality or accuracy, or downright threats to our national security. The furore around fake news in Singapore and around the world is a testimony to the pervasiveness of this phenomenon. What will the NLB do about websites with objectionable content? Example, content which could pose a threat to national security. While it seems that the NLB should archive these for the sake of posterity, what safeguards will be put in place to restrict access? Mr. Speaker, I support the bill.